are you?
Good, good.
Good evening and welcome to the March 2nd, 2021 Northern Lebanon School District Committee meeting. I call this meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded. Thank you for joining us virtually this evening. Please know that all webinar community member participants will remain on mute during the meeting unless they have put in a request to speak during the public comment period. Those wishing to make public comment were asked to submit that request by 4 o'clock this evening via email or online form. Mrs. Martin, may I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Gray,
Here.
Erdman,
Here.
Fowler,
Here.
Marlowe,
Here.
Murray,
Here.
Klein,
Here.
Tekelic, Nom,
Here.
Bucks,
Here.
all members present.
Thank you. Our first thing up this evening is a presentation by Crabtree, Rohrbaugh and Associates. We have Scott Cousins on this evening.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to give a update of where we stand in the current project design and focus on where things that we've been doing during design development. We've had what we call a design development submission, and then talk about where we're going next. And we've taken a second look at the exterior elevations based on some comments received from the original meeting. So we'll take a look at those revised designs. Was everybody able to see my screen?
Yep.
So I mentioned we've completed design development. So essentially that's a milestone in just in the matter of development of the design. We've submitted drawings to your construction manager, Fadavia, for their review. What's encompassed in those drawings is kind of a culmination of what we worked to date. So some of those key milestones are, we basically had our second round of faculty meetings with your staff and incorporated all their comments into the interior layout. So we've had 2 rounds. The first round was in December, the second round was in February, and essentially I've now incorporated all those comments into the design to accommodate all the staff's desires and what they need for their interior room layouts. We've also received comments from the township on the initial land development submission. We have incorporated those comments, made a resubmission to the township. We had a meeting the other week with the township, and that process is ongoing and progressing. Of course, it's not only just us on the architectural side, we have our full complement of consultants from HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and structural, and we're coordinating with them and getting more into the finer levels of detail with those aspects of the design and evolving those portions along with the food service. And as I mentioned, we're revising our exterior elevation concepts. So as we look forward to what we're working on now and what's upcoming, once we get the exterior elevation concepts kind of solidified, we'll move into the interior design and look at some of the finishes and color and pattern concepts in the interior and begin to review those with your administration and eventually bring them to you. We'll work to finalize the land development process with the township and all the other agencies that oversee that process and eventually get that approval here later in the spring. We'll continue our coordination with our consultants. So as we move from design development to construction documents, it's kind of like there's going to be less decision making and more kind of us and our design team documenting and coordinating all the requirements to put together a full set of documents that a contractor will be able to construct. So not saying every decision has been made. There's still many decisions to be made, but we'll go more into less big picture, more into detail, and then progress it to eventually have that set of bidding documents available for the contractor and develop those details and specifications. And we're on target to release bids on May 31st of this year. So that's ahead of when we anticipate approvals from the township. And that's on purpose because, as Fidavius mentioned before, we want to get the documents on the streets. We're seeing really competitive pricing right now from contractors. We've had really heavy participation in our bid, in some of our recent bids, some competition that we haven't seen in over 10 years. So we want to take advantage of that. Certainly not delay going out to bid. So while we're out to bid, we'll still be wrapping up our approvals, and hopefully those approvals will come right in line with receipt of bid or shortly thereafter prior to start of construction. Any questions on progress to date or upcoming milestones? Okay. I wanted to also take the opportunity to update some of the cost estimate. We've had some increases in costs from the last iteration you saw at the Act 34 hearing. The majority of those, the vast majority of those had to deal with the site design. I mentioned we had some comments from the township that we've incorporated into the resubmission. Some of those items that they commented on do have cost impacts. We've also completed the traffic impact study, and as a result, the traffic impact study is requiring some turn lane improvements being done on School Drive into the site. And so those are now incorporated into the design and those costs. And then we've added some walking paths, stormwater, evolved the stormwater design and done some other evolutions in the design. We've had, as we work with your staff to kind of fine tune exactly what the building looks like and how and what spaces there are and how many there are and what size they are. The building ebb and flows, and sometimes we're taking space away, sometimes we're adding space. At this time, from the last time you saw it, there was a slight net increase, nothing significant, but that was one of the factors that factored into it. And then you'll see some of the exterior design changes that we're looking at, and there was some minor cost impact for those. So those are some of the cost impacts in the update, the cost estimate. Any questions on the cost estimate?
And Scott, I'll just clarify. We were at the Director Marlowe and we were at the last township meeting. And they wanted something. They did want sidewalks around the entire airport road and School Drive. They actually would like us to connect our sidewalk all the way down to the development on Airport Drive, which we don't have to do, but they were, as they said, a little give and take. They allowed us to narrow a little bit the road from 15 feet to 14 feet. And in exchange, they asked for that. Now, there are some properties in there that we have to talk to. I'm waiting on elevations because depending on the elevation, if excavation is needed, we would need their permission. If excavation is not, then not as much. It's more informational. Hey, we're putting a sidewalk there. So we got a little bit of work to do there once we get those elevations. And then the other thing was street lights around that sidewalk at night. That was another addition. And curbing also was, I think, the other one that, and I will say that those are all township things that we would have had to get a waiver to not do them. So they're well within their rights to ask for them. Sometimes you can convince them to waive that, but in this case, we're going to have to go ahead with those things. So
who's responsible for them after like if we do a sidewalk from the school all the way down to that development, will the township then take responsibility?
the school board directors are responsible for shoveling the sidewalks.
Yeah.
We are.
Actually, the property
I'm like-
owner.
Oh, down there, yes.
In front of if it goes through the other property owner
Yes.
owns that land.
Yeah, our land is us, and their land is them.
What's the distance? I don't know. Is it about a mile?
800 extra feet.
Okay. 1 foot for 800. That seems fair.
What's that?
They gave us a foot, 800. That seems.
Yeah, and as Dr. Messinger mentioned, these were township requirements as part of their ordinance. We had assumed in the original cost estimate that we would get the waivers because there are no sidewalks, curbing, or lighting anywhere surrounding the street. But as he mentioned, they're well within their rights to not allow those waivers, and that's essentially what happened.
So I'm a little far away from the screen. What is the
cost delta?
The net cost delta, right now we're at 49.6 for total project cost. So it was the site work in itself, all the site items I walked through was a delta of about 900,000. The building and the elevations and the slight increase in footprint was about 400,000. And then the way we have our cost estimate built is that all the soft costs are basically percentages on top of that. So there's an indirect soft cost increase about 300. So about 1.6 million over what we saw last time. Now, when we talk about the Act 34 maximum building construction cost that you did approve with the Act 34 hearing, that cost is on the building only. And if you remember, I talked about if you exceed that cost by more than 8%, we have to have a second Act 34 hearing. So the majority of these costs were either soft costs or site costs. So there's very little increase to the building. So there's nothing to be worried about with the maximum building construction cost that you approved with the Act 34.
And we did receive this late this afternoon. We'll get it up on board docs for the public and then for you guys as well, if you want to take a closer look.
Was there a specific reason for the increase in building size, or was this just kind of a general adjustment to make sure that we're comfortable, or?
Yeah, these are just general adjustments. I mean, I can talk through kind of the evolution of some of the changes that have occurred. So we've had an increase in the gymnasium size. I believe that was already in the Act 34 hearing, actually, just so that we can have a larger side court basketball size for the side court. We had some adjustments in the district administrative offices based on office layout and configuration. We had adjustments in a portion of the building storage kind of maintenance area to accommodate the amount of equipment you need to store. So these are all kind of evolution. The typical things that happen as you get more detail into the design. For instance, the maintenance area, we work with Mason to say, all right, what are you actually going to store here? What piece of equipment? And we actually do a layout of those, and the original size we had for that wasn't adequate to accommodate that. So we had to increase it. Now, I will say other areas did increase as we made things more efficient and things like that. The overall net increase was probably about 250 square feet. When you think of our building being 185,000 square feet, that was a very small percentage increase. But once again, it was that kind of ebb and flow. And as I mentioned, go ahead.
Scott, one other question. What and outstanding issues with the township do you anticipate that we might be facing that could also impact costs?
Sure, good question. I think everything's kind of on the table at this point. There's discussion about some of the planning commission members wanting a light on 22, but per our traffic impact study, PennDOT will not allow you to put a light unless it's warranted, unless it basically is a failing intersection. Per our traffic study, it's not a failing intersection. So even if you said, hey, we're gonna put a light here and we're gonna pay for it ourselves, PennDOT won't let you. So that, I know that's one item out there, but I don't think that's going to come to fruition. But I think all the big picture things have come to fruition, unless we go to the Board of Supervisors and something else comes up that we're unaware of.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we're as we move from design development to construction documents, we've answered a lot of those big picture questions and got a lot of big picture feedback that really shapes the cost. So as we move into construction documents, I don't see the need to adjust the cost unless something unforeseen comes up. Okay.
Any other questions for Scott?
I do have the exterior design if there's to look at. So before I go into to show the design, to summarize kind of what we presented before, we had a concept that had some incorporation of blue and some yellow on the exterior. It was more kind of a rectilinear concept, and we talked about scale and how to break down the massing of a building of size. Some of the positive feedback we got was that it felt a little too institutional for elementary school, And so we've kind of had multiple meetings behind the scenes with the administration to kind of work at that and try to get it to feel more like an educational K-12 facility, or excuse me, K-6 building, and bringing things. I think there's some comments of, I think some folks visited our website and saw some of the other projects we did and looked at some of the more playful designs. And so we kind of incorporated that. And then we also looked at ways to break down the kind of the scale and the mass of the whole front elevation or the base of the, it's a long building. And so how do we break that up and not make it look so institutional? So with that being said, I'll show you. The current design. So this kind of just gives you, once again, an overview. These are the 3 classroom wings. This is School Drive, Airport Road on the side over here. This is the main entrance, the kindergarten wing, the DAO, the gym, and the rear service area. So as we zoom in here, you'll see a concept that we're developing for the front entrance, that we play with that roof form to try to not only identify the entrance with the roof form, but once again, bring in something that's a little more playful, a little more that kind of yields itself to a elementary building, so to speak. And we're beginning to also break up these elevation wings. If you remember before, this was all one kind of red brick with some blue panels kind of randomized throughout here. We're now bringing in a different brick material. So this is like a dark gray brick that kind of complements with the red, but begins to break that elevation up a little bit so it's not so long and drawn out. And then you'll see we're bringing, once again, more color in through here into the classroom wing, and once again bringing the color into the glass here at the front entrance. And take a closer look. So here you can see we'll have this canopy form out front that's becoming, you soften the curve, bringing some curves into that canopy form so it feels more welcoming and softening. We're bringing in these yellow columns that are kind of a random, more playful, more not so regimented look along the front. And then once again, that sweeping roof curve form here, maybe bringing some wood tone look underneath it to soften that a little bit more and get away from that institutional. And then the rest of the media center is kind of more kind of straightforward, and the curve form sits over top of that entry. And anyone have any thoughts or comments along the way, please feel free to interrupt. So just looking at a different view of that, you get in context with the classroom wing here, kind of really bring in, once again, that color, your blues and your yellows, and unifying that design, but trying to achieve, once again, that more kind of whimsical front elevation.
Yeah,
Looking at the classroom wings, we still have the, go ahead.
I just like to say that front entrance, I think that's a huge improvement. I like it a lot more. It definitely does look, more like a carnival, like you're going to have fun in the building. So thank you for delving deeper into that. And thank you, Barry.
Absolutely. We kind of, we welcome those comments. It was kind of good and refreshing to have comments pushing us in that direction rather than the other direction of, hey, can't we make this a simple box? So it's good to see a desire to really make this a fun and inviting place for the kids. So we welcome the constructive criticism. So moving around to the classroom wings, once again, we have the blue panels kind of anchor at the stairs, anchoring each one of these wings. And then you'll see here, we're starting to bring more of the yellow and blue of the glazing in other areas into the building. As we look down at a typical kind of outdoor area between the 2 classroom wings, you'll see here, once again, that gray accent brick coming in and really beginning to, rather than being one long drawn out facade of red, now we're beginning to break it up with different window fenestration and different massing of the different colors of brick.
Scott, you want to take them? You want
Go
to take
ahead.
them into that and show them the inside look.
Yeah.
And I kind of chuckled because we spent hours. It was like the old paint program where you're coloring things gray, red, blue, yellow. Check that, try this, check this, do. I mean, it was a long process, and I finally got to the point where I wasn't sure which I liked better, but definitely some more flavor to this.
Yeah, so this kind of gives you that feel of that area. And once again, this is going to be that outdoor learning area. We have our collaboration kind of spaces at the end here that'll have access to this area, and this will be more of a usable space for teaching and outdoor learning activities. And this is kind of the glass glazing that's on that main common circulation behind us. And then we do have fencing at the end of that, just for security.
Is that fencing new?
That fencing new as far as, have you seen it before? Or
Right.
Yeah, no, that is new. I believe this was a comment from a board member early on about how are we going to secure that area. And so this was kind of a reaction to that. Put an ornamental fencing here that could kind of better control this area, so to speak, if you have kids out
Good.
there.
Good. Big fan. Thank you.
Are there
Yep,
any
sure.
other security measures as far as, I mean, maybe you can't talk too much about security, but like, do we have cameras out there?
Yeah, that's another part of the development of the design as we move forward. We'll be developing that interior and exterior camera layout. We'll work with our engineers in the district and a vendor chosen by the district from who can supply those cameras to do the layout of that. But yeah, we'll talk about coverage of cameras in that area.
And we currently have cameras now on this campus, interior and exterior. Elementary, it's really just the office and vestibule areas, the current elementaries, but we'll have an opportunity to do, actually Brad would be able to zoom in high def from our parking lot camera all the way over to the elementary building right now, because that's what he does. And it is pretty neat. It's actually really good technology. But yeah, we'll look at something similar there.
Okay. And then as we kind of work our way to the back, this is kind of, once again, the rear elevation. That's more the service area. We are planning to provide a lot of screening on this road. This is because, once again, it is the service area of the building. This is kind of along Airport Road. As we work our way, you can see the development of the outdoor play areas. We had a lot of great feedback from your staff on what these should look like and the amenities that should go here. We've had a bunch of different iterations. We're currently working on what the equipment is going to look like out here as well. Here in the background, you can see off to the right is the cafeteria. We have a small outdoor eating area there that the kids can take advantage of on nicer days. And then the gymnasium element you see here. We're bringing kind of the blue color from what you saw in the front of the building to kind of try to tie everything together. So this is like a blue metal panel with those yellow forms incorporated. And then once again, you can see those kind of more random space, yellow playful columns incorporated into the cafeteria here. Get a closer look at that. And we talked about there might be an opportunity here to put a logo or some other identification, whether it be graphic or logo in this location here. Kind of circling back around to the front of the building here. Here you can see the district administrative office and the kindergarten wing out into the foreground here. And we'll kind of get a good look at the district administrative office entrance. Bringing in once again some of those blue forms and similar canopy forms, but on a smaller scale. We didn't want to put another curved roof over here because we want that front entrance to be unique and identifiable, and don't want people mistaking this as the front entrance. So we did a simpler concept on the district administrative office. So in the PowerPoint that will be shared with you, there are still images of a lot of these shots that you saw. So feel free to digest them further. But are at this time, are there any other comments, likes, dislikes, things you want to take a second look at, or?
I'm sure you've done this, but are all of the outdoor areas handicap accessible?
Yes, absolutely. Good question. Yeah, so if we talk about kind of some of those pathways, so the play areas here, the hard surface areas will be ADA accessible. We'll have a path that comes from exit that off of the main commons over here that can get you here. There'll also be an exit off the kindergarten wing that allow the kindergarten to come directly to their play area, and along with the cafeteria will also have that access to this area. And then for gymnasium use, if they're going to go use the fields, they'll have a path that basically follows the sidewalk here and eventually leads you across the sidewalk and the road here. We talked about putting a speed table or some sort of stop signs to protect the pedestrians as they walk here. There shouldn't be too much traffic during the day, but if there is, there's ways to do some traffic calming there, but access to the fields over here. And all these fields, both play fields and the softball and the baseball, softball fields will have paved pathways. You don't see them in this model, but they will have paved pathways and ADA access to those. Those are actually code requirements that where we provide those amenities, we have ADA access.
Great, thanks.
I know you mentioned that kindergarten has their own separate play area, but is 1st through 6th all together in one contiguous play area?
Yeah, and that's kind of an evolution. So we have kind of a different area or zone, so to speak. We originally had a concept where we had a fence separating these two. So this is kind of the quote unquote primary play area. We did have a fence, but the administration decided to eliminate that fence. And maybe Dr. Messinger or someone else can comment on the thought process there. But they will have K1 and 2 will have their kind of appropriate play structure for their age group on this area, and then 3 through 6 will have play structures over here.
Yeah, we didn't want to close it off too much. You're playing kickball, you're playing basketball, and you got the fence running through the middle. And the other thing is, in most cases, the way the schedule works out is you're winding up with one grade level at a time out there. So, on those days when the second graders are getting close to being third graders in April, and you want to say, hey guys, you can sneak over to the big stuff. You have that ability to do that. Or if it's a special day, you have a little more flexibility in the space you can use. We do have a playground meeting, I think, tomorrow, don't we, Scott? To talk more about that? Or soon, coming up soon?
Yeah.
So one grade level about out there at a time. So that's what, 200-ish kids?
It
200
can
on the
be.
larger
We
side.
don't have too many 200s right now, but it could be. And if you need to divide it up, we would need to divide it up. But you want to try to keep the grade levels on schedule because we'll be able to do all their specials at the same time. So all 7 classes, 8 classes, 6 classes, we would be able to accommodate their specials at the same time. You're going to want to have reading at the same time and math at the same time. Or if you're in an older grade and they're kind of doing, maybe 6th grade's doing some period types of things, then you might do some of that, but you're still going to have specials kind of at the same time. So from a scheduling standpoint, some of those times you want to have consistency with.
Any other questions or comments or parts of the building you wanted to go take a second look at or a closer look at?
Speaking of walkways, is there a pedestrian walkway to the high school?
Between the two itself?
Yes.
Let me pull up the, I believe I have the site plan open in a second.
While he's getting that, I will also say that the township does have a sidewalk in between two properties on Mike, is it Creekside Road? Is that the name of the street? I can't remember the name of the street now. Creek something. Creek Drive. In that cul-de-sac, there's a sidewalk there that we will connect with a pathway to. So they can walk, if they're not on the road in that development, they can walk to the cul-de-sac and up the sidewalk and then onto that path.
So this shows you the kind of network paving paths. Oh, that's loaded. You can kind of see the path that we talked about here, getting access to the field and to the softball field, baseball fields, and then you'll see we have the path continuing along that the drive up front, and it's connecting over to the high school. We also have the entry sidewalks out front, and actually one of the changes we talked about since this drawing set was produced was actually creating another extending this walkway and having another connection to this walk here in the event someone wanted to come back to the front entrance here. So to answer your question, yes, we do have that connection between the high school.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question that's kind of off the wall, but do all of the classrooms in the elementary school have windows? Like where all of the students will be in a teaching environment? Is there a window in that classroom?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's something we strongly believe in, natural light. It's proven to improve test scores, so we have a window in every educational space.
Okay, great, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Great questions. Anything else? We'll certainly take your time to look through that PowerPoint with with those still images, and if you have any comments, additional further comments, please forward them along to the administration, and we'll incorporate them. Thank you for your time again.
Thank you for the update, Scott.
Yep.
Moving to item 3, that is our public comment period. Those wishing to make public comment were asked to submit that request by 4 o'clock this evening via email or online form. And Mrs. Martin has informed me that we do not have any public comment requests this evening. So we move on. Item 4 is a notice, items for discussion. The minutes shall note that public notice was given for the meeting in accordance with Act 84 of 1986. Notices and advisements of these meetings will carry the intent that limited business may be conducted on any scheduled meeting date. Now we move to item 5. These are items for discussion on our that we anticipate being on our consent calendar.
Yeah, those are our 3 normal ones for item 5, approval of minutes, the student activity count, and the cash disbursements.
Any questions on those items? Moving to item 6, budget and finance.
The first item, we're starting to get some agreements for, believe it or not, next year. So the first one is our agreement between us and the Meadows Psychiatric Center for 2021-22 school year and 2022-23 school year. In addition to that, there are 2 informational items. The first one is that the Lebanon County CTC audit for the year ending June 30th, 2020 is available in the office. Pat has it. Oh, Pat has it here, so anyone who would like to look at that before you leave, you can do that, or you can stop by and see her. And the other one is a letter of commitment for internet dark fiber. Dark fiber, Kirk, am I saying that? Yeah, okay. From the IU 13. This is one of those things that we take a look at in terms of pricing and try to make sure from a utility standpoint that we're getting a good price. I believe the two folks that were competing were Comcast and the IU consortium. My Crown Castle. Okay. And so when we are ready to proceed with the new building, we'll be using their services for that. And they gave us a good price, quite a bit less than Comcast, I believe. Yeah.
Dr. Messinger, what's the advantage of that?
I'm going to let Kirk answer that question.
Right. Yep.
So the advantage one will be able to lock in a lease that will actually go for fiber for a very IU 13.
And the performance will be better?
Will be
Oh.
20.
Okay.
Just to, Kirk, we should have given you a microphone tonight. Just to try to recap that for this, that is how much faster than what the Comcast was? Okay, and this was 20. Twice the bandwidth for a third of the cost. So we felt like we got a good deal there. And just to repeat what he said, that they currently provide this, and when the new building is up and running, then we'll extend it over there to the new building.
Any questions on those budget and finance items? All right, there are no items for buildings and grounds, so we move on to item 8, extracurricular.
Yeah, we have a volunteer assistant track and field coach. Clearance paperwork is current on that. And then unfortunately, we are not headed to Spain this summer. It is a board approved trip already. However, we are looking to postpone an attempt to go June of 2022 at this point. And hopefully it works out for that.
Any questions on those items? All right, we have several items on our curriculum calendar.
Yes, we have final adoption of several policies that are listed for you there. In addition to that, I did want to bring up, we did have one question about one of the policies in terms of induction. I think the policy is probably written okay, but I want to make sure that we have a procedure in place, Pat, to when we develop an induction program, that it gets board approved before submission to the state. And we haven't had to do that since I've been here, but it's in policy. We'll make sure we have that. So we'll look into that for you as well. We have some tentative adoption of policies 9.2 that are listed for you. And again, as we develop these new policies, we're retiring the 400s and 500s. So we have some retiring of policies there as well. We have a final adoption of the textbook for human anatomy and physiology, as mentioned before. If you'd like to look at that, that's in Pat's office as well, unless you brought it up here. No, that's in Pat's office. We do have a potential foreign exchange student. There's some COVID-19 restrictions that we need to be in good shape with. and hopefully we'll be able to do that. But if COVID-19 restrictions are not, are no longer there, we will have an exchange student. And then finally, NOCD NIMS test waiver. We have a situation for the NOCD exam that PDE is allowing us to waive that. There's really no benefit for our students for it. It affects 10 kids, but rather than ask them to take that with no benefit this year, since the state is allowing districts to waive it, then we're going to waive it for those students.
Any questions on those items? All right, item 10 is human relations. We have several items there.
Yeah, we have a professional substitute listed for you for our list. We also have 10.2, a classified substitute. We do have a resignation of a custodian effective 2/19. And then also we have Lindsay Zeckman as a PCA, supplemental support at Fredericksburg for a needed position there. And then we will have a name for you for our V3 coordinator next week, and that fills that vacancy that is there from Tara Gross leaving. And then there is also a job description there for a communications/human resources manager. And then finally, the classified, I'm sorry, not finally, but the classified compensation plan. I do want to talk about that for a second. Prior to COVID last year, we had talked about a raise to get our classified starting salaries and our classified staff more competitive wages. And at that point, we had proposed in the classified handbook a $2 increase. When COVID hit and the unsurety of the budget occurred, we had decided on a 50-cent raise, and we actually wrote into the handbook that we would reevaluate that at some point this year. We've looked at it repeatedly. However, it really wasn't until we got to about halfway through where we could start to make some estimates on where we were revenue-wise. From a local taxing standpoint, we've actually done a pretty good job. You've seen the numbers each month. I believe local revenue, if I'm not mistaken, was almost 98% of what we had budgeted for. So we've been able to hit those marks, which is great. But we also had then the opportunity to revisit this and to address it. So the handbook is modified to reflect an additional $1.50 for classified staff, which would be effective April 5th, if it's so approved. Oh, and I'm sorry, at the bottom, we do have an informational item. It's a redesignation of Stacy Clark from an instructional assistant, 3 hours, 45 minutes to 6 hours, 20 minutes of autistic support PCA at Fredericksburg.
Are there any questions on those items?
Just one thing real quick, on the classified compensation plan, I noticed this afternoon that it references 500 series policies. So as we replace those, we'll want to make sure that it cross-references correctly.
We're making notes. There's Post-its in it, I think, that already has prepared, yes.
Are there any other questions on those human relations items? Is there anything else for the good of the order this evening? Hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn? May I have a second? Is there any discussion? This is a unanimous roll call vote. Your vote will be recorded in the affirmative unless you say nay or I abstain. The motion has passed. I call this meeting adjourned. Have a good evening, everyone.